In The Empire Strikes Back, Boba Fett flies away from Cloud City with a carbonite-frozen Han Solo, and in Return of the Jedi, Jabba the Hutt is in possession of his favorite decoration. But things are never as easy as they seem for the galaxy's most notorious bounty hunter. En route to Tatooine from Bespin, Boba Fett called Jabba the Hutt's major domo Bib Fortuna to report that he had captured Solo and the Hutt needed to have his credits ready upon his arrival. Suddenly, an alarm sounded from the carbonite slab's monitoring system, and ever the professional, Fett simply ended the call so as not to alarm his client. Unable to find the reason for the alarm, Fett noticed strange stains forming on the carbonite block's surface. He could not risk losing this payday, and he knew he had to act fast. Rerouting to the smuggler's moon of Nar Shaddaa, he met with a longtime contact, Doc Ragan. The Basilisk took one look at Fett's cargo and immediately knew the problem. The Matrix was unstable, and for a nominal fee, he would be happy to stabilize the Matrix and make some adjustments so it would not happen again. Having worked with Fett in the past, Ragan demanded payment up front, but he proposed an alternative. All Fett had to do was take out a local pit fighter the Doc had lost a lot of money betting on. Seeing no alternative, Fett agreed. And to disguise his true identity, Fett used nano spray paint to make his armor black before registering for the local arena fights. Naturally, Fett and his abilities rose through the ranks until he faced Ragan's target, whom he eventually eliminated. But when he returned to Ragan's less than reputable establishment, he discovered the Doctor was dead and Solo was missing. Returning to his ship, he left a message with Bib Fortuna that he was delayed but would deliver the package, and as he boarded his fire spray, an explosion sent him flying. Gathering his footing, he found himself staring down the blaster rifle of the Gand Findsman Zuckuss. Launching the rocket from his jetpack, Fett took to the air as Zuckuss called in his partner 4LOM, who took aim at Fett and forced him to stand down. When Fett settled back onto the landing platform, the droid bounty hunter inquired as to where Boba had stashed Han Solo. With no time to deal with this distraction, Fett remotely triggered the fire spray's laser cannons, and in the aftermath, he collected 4LOM's droid brain to get some answers. Connecting the droid to his ship's computer, Fett was shocked to discover that a bounty had been placed on his head, dead or alive, with a bonus for Solo's delivery. Digging deeper, he learned the bounty had been placed on his head by none other than Jabba the Hutt. To become the greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy requires taking some risks, and Fett flew straight to Tatooine to confront Jabba himself. However, he was stopped at the palace gates by Bib Fortuna. Eliminating the guards, Fett demanded Jabba remove the bounty from his head so he could track down and deliver Solo. But Fortuna announced the great and mighty Jabba was not currently on Tatooine, as he had received an invitation from the people who had stolen Solo's carbonite slab. Demanding to see the invitation, Fett learned that crime syndicate Crimson Dawn had taken possession of Solo and were holding an auction to sell the smuggler to the highest bidder. Now Fett had a target and their location, and he was ready to end all of this chaos. Arriving on Jakara, Fett scouted Crimson Dawn's flagship, and he knew he would need a disguise to get past all of their guards. Cornering a group approaching the auction, Fett demanded their invitation and cloaks, but he suddenly found himself caught in a fiber cord whip. The overly excited Trandoshan bounty hunter Bossk had arrived to claim the bounty on Fett. Using his flamethrower and jetpack, Fett escaped, crippling Bossk in the process, and he tied up the reptilian bounty hunter as a warning to any other hunters currently on his trail. Once inside, Fett discovered there were representatives from every major criminal faction, as well as the Galactic Empire and the Rebel Alliance. As he prepared to ambush Kira to reclaim possession of Solo, Jabba won the auction, and for a much larger sum than Boba's original contract to retrieve the smuggler for the Hutt. But at that moment, Darth Vader interrupted the auction, claiming possession of Solo for himself. After Vader reminded Jabba that the favored standing the Hutts held with the Empire could be altered, Jabba happily gave ownership of Solo to Lord Vader. But as the Sith prepared to take possession of Solo, Kira intervened, demanding that Jabba's winning bid of 1 million credits was still owed to Crimson Dawn. And when Vader declared that he owed nothing, Kira inquired if the Empire was too poor to pay its debts. This triggered Vader into igniting his lightsaber, but Kira was not intimidated. She pulled her own weapons and engaged Vader, revealing she was a master of Teras Kazi, a form of hand-to-hand combat that was created to counter Force sensitives. As the two dueled, Boba Fett saw an opportunity to take out Vader and claim Solo for himself. But the memory of seeing Vader defend himself against blaster bolts on Bespin forced him to change his mind. As Fett worked out an alternate plan, circumstances suddenly changed. Vader overpowered Kira, and the Sith suddenly turned his lightsaber on Han Solo's frozen form. Luke Skywalker had arrived in system to aid in the Rebels' rescue of Han Solo, and Vader, having sensed young Skywalker's arrival, reached out to him in the Force, threatening to kill Solo unless the boy turned himself over to the Empire. Those in attendance were unaware of this conversation, and they only saw Vader turn his lightsaber towards Solo and then order his Imperial officers to load Solo onto his Star Destroyer. And once again, Fett had to work on yet another plan to regain possession of the frozen smuggler. Monitoring the Imperials' progress as they loaded Solo onto their Lambda-class shuttle, Fett was accosted by yet another bounty hunter, Dengar, backed up by none other than the cyborg bounty hunter Beilert Valance. Fett was able to strand Dengar on a floating iceberg, but he was left with only one option to deal with Valance: partner together to get Solo back. The two boarded Fett's fire spray, racing after the Imperials, only to find the Millennium Falcon was already in pursuit of the shuttle, ferrying Solo to the Executor, Darth Vader's personal Super Star Destroyer. Valance refused to let Fett target the rebels, so Boba chose to remove them from the fight by hitting them with a seismic charge dialed back to 20% intensity. With his target finally in his sights, yet another obstacle arrived, a Hutt armada, ready to teach the Empire why they should never insult a Hutt. In response to the Hutt's attack, squadrons of TIE fighters were dispatched from the Executor by Admiral Piet. Fett's plan was simple: race to the Imperial shuttle and set off another seismic charge to disable all the surrounding ships. Then he and Valance would quickly board and transfer Solo to the fire spray. But when Valance announced the shuttle had restarted their engines and were now racing to the Star Destroyer, Fett claimed there was always a way. Fett contacted the Executor and asked to board the ship, saying he was on a mission for Darth Vader, and to Valance's surprise, the ruse worked. As the two bounty hunters traversed the hallways, they were accosted by a KX security droid. Though Valance quickly eliminated it, Fett saw his chance. Throwing a thermal detonator at the cyborg, Fett left Valance to die as he went alone to retrieve Solo. Arriving where the Imperials had stored the smuggler, Fett discovered Princess Leia, Lando Calrissian, and Chewbacca were already there, and they had already eliminated all the Imperial stormtrooper guards. Demanding the rebels get away from his property, an explosion suddenly rocked the room. The Hutt ships had pierced the hull of the Super Star Destroyer. Suddenly, Solo's carbonite slab slipped through the gaping hole and began plummeting to the planet's surface. Seeing his opportunity, Fett ignited his jetpack and raced after his target. Using his whipcord launcher, he snagged Solo just before he fell beneath the ocean waves, and turning skyward, Fett escaped with his bounty in tow. A short time later, Fett presented Solo to Jabba the Hutt on Tatooine, and while Jabba had nothing but praise for Boba and his dedication to the job, the bounty hunter coldly called the Hutt out for placing a bounty on his head. Jabba quickly announced that the contract had already been cancelled and that it was merely business, nothing personal. Business was something Fett understood. Boba had admitted that he didn't expect to find Jabba in a position to pay after the Hutts had attacked the Imperials, and Jabba revealed that it was the Hutt Council who had been behind the assault, and with them now dead, he was the sole authority over all the Hutt clans. And with the promise of future work, Jabba announced that his intention was to hang the carbonite slab on his wall so he could see the look of agony on Solo's face every day. Fett chastised Jabba for making it personal and then demanded his payment in full. Jabba survived the wrath of the Empire and Darth Vader, but one ancient Sith was not so lucky. If you want to hear the story of how Darth Moment became the focus of Darth Vader's wrath, check out the video on the screen.